On the eve of a death penalty moratorium, prison guards in a Russian facility begin offering victims' families the chance to carry out executions themselves. What starts as an act of justice soon spirals into a deadly and highly profitable business. Russia, 1996. Just before the country imposes a moratorium on the death penalty, a new prison guard, Konstantin Volkov, arrives at a remote penitentiary in Yelizovo, Kamchatka, reporting to Lieutenant Colonel Bidyogov. Konstantin is introduced to his colleagues, Junior Sergeant Roman Savalyev and Sergeant Alexander Rybkin. That same day, prosecutor Andrei Mikhailov arrives, announcing the scheduled execution of a brutal serial killer named Zuov. While touring the prison, Alexander and Roman show Konstantin 5 death row inmates, each considered highly dangerous. The guards refer to the prisoners only by their nicknames, dehumanizing them, which doesn't sit well with Konstantin. Despite their crimes, he shows a spark of compassion, offering help to one inmate known as the Professor, who is suffering from kidney issues. The prison doctor, Peter, is unsympathetic and claims to have no medication, but Konstantin volunteers to buy pills from the nearest pharmacy to ease the prisoner's pain. Later that night, the prosecutor has a heated argument with his parents over money and then with his wife, who threatens divorce, claiming she's tired of living in poverty. A physical fight breaks out. Shortly after, he heads back to the prison for the execution. But Warden Bidyogov is absent, celebrating his mother-in-law's birthday, and leaves the duty to the guards, the doctor, and the prosecutor. As Zuov is led to the shower, used for executions, the other inmates realize their fate is sealed. The prosecutor tries to speak with Zuov one last time, but Konstantin sees no point, and pulls the trigger himself. On the way home, Alexander tells Konstantin he's getting married soon and invites him to the wedding. Later, at home, Alexander agrees to all of his fiancée Natasha's wedding requests. Meanwhile, Dr. Peter is avoiding his wife and son by spending time with a promiscuous woman. That night, Natasha goes out with friends for her bachelorette party. At the club, she flirts with a wealthy stranger and, along with her friends, tricks men into buying them drinks before sneaking out the bathroom window. On her way home, Natasha is cornered by one of the men, who pulls a gun and forces her into his car. She returns the next morning, bruised and battered, and confesses to Alexander that she was assaulted. The next morning, Konstantin notices something is wrong, but Alexander refuses to talk. After his shift, Alexander steals a colleague's gun and considers ending his life. Drunk and overwhelmed, he changes his mind, opting instead to get revenge. That evening, he returns to the club and finds the man who assaulted Natasha. Alexander hesitates to shoot, and the thug overpowers him, taking the weapon. Just as he's about to fire, Konstantin appears and kills the man. The two guards later burn the body and car, unaware they're being watched. Ridden with guilt, Alexander worries they've crossed a line, but Konstantin reassures him. They didn't kill an innocent man, they took out a predator who slipped through the cracks of the justice system. Meanwhile, Natasha confides in her mother, who urges her to stay silent. Her friend brushes her off, leaving Natasha feeling isolated. She attempts suicide, but the rope snaps. Witnessing her broken state, Alexander realizes his love for her is real. He stops blaming her and sees her as a victim. Days later, the two get married. Konstantin supports the decision and introduces the couple to his wife, Nina, who instantly catches Roman's eye. Later, Alexander and Konstantin are approached by a man who had been watching them, Kotov, the father of a girl murdered by the professor. Kotov offers the guards $500 to let him carry out the execution himself. If they refuse, he threatens to expose their role in the nightclub killing. A few days later, the police show up at Natasha's door, asking questions about her recent night out at the club. Turns out, the thug who was last seen with her has mysteriously vanished, and witnesses say she was the last person with him. Natasha, unaware of what happened to the maniac who attacked her, gives a truthful statement. Meanwhile, Alexander starts to panic and tells Konstantin everything. His friend tries to calm him down, saying there's no need to worry, only one person witnessed the killing, Kotov, and he's not talking. At the same time, the prosecutor's wife, Katya, gets into a heated fight with his parents. Things escalate into a physical scuffle with his mother, after which Katya packs up and leaves. That evening, the prosecutor, Andrei, finds her at a nightclub and asks her to come home. She refuses and even gets two random guys to beat him up. Barely escaping, Andrei decides he's done with Katya, but she follows him out and begs to make up. They end up having sex in the car, where she confesses she still loves him but can't stand being broke. She pleads with him to find a way to fix their financial situation. Meanwhile, Dr. Peter is still cheating on his wife. This time, he hooks up with the mother of his son's friend. While the kids are watching TV, the two adults have sex, both cheating on their spouses. Soon, Peter and the woman become regular lovers, but things take a dark turn when she finds out she has an STD. Peter has to tell his wife so they can both get tested. The results are shocking. Peter is clean, but his wife is infected. Overcome with guilt, he promises to get the money needed for her treatment. Trying to figure out what to do next, Konstantin visits a convicted serial killer known as the Professor. The man describes in disturbing detail how he enjoyed killing young female students. It gave him a thrill. Constantine secretly records the confession and later asks Alexander to get him access to the case files. Alexander reaches out to the prosecutor, who agrees to help, but only in exchange for cash. The next morning, Constantine meets with Kotov and gives him $500, promising to let him kill the professor. With the money he received from Alexander, the prosecutor rents a new apartment to surprise his wife. Meanwhile, Constantine digs deeper into the professor's file and discovers that one of the victims was the daughter of a wealthy and powerful businesswoman. Traveling to another city, he tracks her, Alla Linchuk, down at a restaurant and makes her an offer: pay to have her daughter's killer executed. He leaves her the tape with the professor's confession and heads to his hotel. After listening to the recording, she realizes she's willing to do anything to get revenge. At the same time, Roman keeps following Nina and trying to get closer to her. The missing maniac's wife bumps into Natasha and asks for help, but Natasha ignores her. Rumors start spreading that Natasha might be pregnant. She hopes it's not true. If the timing's right, the baby could be the maniac's, not her husband's. A few days later, Constantine meets with Kotov again to cancel their deal. When Kotov refuses and starts blackmailing the guards, Constantine kills him. Alexander is horrified, but Constantine reassures him. They just eliminated the only witness who could send them to prison. Soon after, Constantine gathers the group, Alexander, Roman, Dr. Peter, and Prosecutor Andrei, for a secret meeting. He tells them that Ms. Linchuk has offered $100,000 to have the professor killed. They agree they don't want to get their hands dirty, but they could start offering outsourced justice, allowing victims' families to take revenge on criminals. It's a way to make serious money while keeping their own hands clean. They vote and agree to work together, promising not to touch the money for now to avoid suspicion. Each of them has their own motives. Peter wants to pay for his wife's treatment. Andrei wants to keep his demanding wife happy, and Alexander is terrified that Constantine might one day betray him and reveal what happened at the nightclub. Later, they sneak Ms. Linchuk into the prison to confront the professor. She doesn't just want to kill him, she wants to make him suffer. The guards are happy to help, especially since she's paying generously. Ms. Linchuk brutally murders the professor and pays out $100,000, after which the guards clean up the execution scene. The 5 accomplices agree to keep the money hidden, but Peter is the first to break that promise. Instead of hiding his bribe, he offers the money to his wife to help pay for her medical treatment. Julia, however, refuses the dirty money and throws it in his face, saying it won't cure her or her illness. Meanwhile, Natasha goes to the hospital and learns she's actually pregnant. She's unsure if she wants to keep the baby or who the father even is, but she decides to quit smoking for the sake of the baby's health. The prosecutor also breaks the deal and starts spending his cut. He rents a fancy apartment in an upscale neighborhood, buys a high-end imported coffee machine, and leaves his wife $100 for miscellaneous expenses. Instead of being happy, Katya searches the apartment, finds $20,000 hidden behind the TV, and accuses her husband of being a liar and a traitor. She steals part of the money and confronts him when he returns home. He confesses to taking a bribe and pleads with her to return the stolen money before they're exposed, and he ends up in prison. Soon after, Constantine approaches the prosecutor directly to request the case files on a killer known as the Doctor. Andrei believes the plan won't work, since the Doctor was a real physician who worked in a hospital and killed 38 patients. All of his victims were terminally ill. He claimed he only wanted to ease their suffering with a lethal injection. Since many might view him as merciful rather than evil, it's unlikely anyone would pay to see him dead. Still, Constantine refuses to give up and decides to find grieving relatives who might want revenge. Meanwhile, police discover Kotov's body and realize he couldn't have taken his own life. After robbing the corpse, the officers launch an investigation to find the real killer. Constantine arranges a meeting with the Doctor to learn his motives. The maniac admits he didn't kill for pleasure, he just wanted to help. All his victims were suffering and close to death, and so were their families. He believed he was doing a good deed, but was sentenced to death nonetheless. Realizing his wife won't accept treatment, Peter gives the money to his mistress instead, hoping it will help her recover from a serious illness. At the same time, his wife Julia decides to quit her hospital job, realizing her condition makes it impossible to keep working with patients. Her boss and coworkers think she landed a better position and wish her luck, unaware of her real struggles. That evening, they throw her a small farewell party. At one point, overwhelmed, Julia locks herself in the restroom and overdoses on sleeping pills. Her friends notice something's wrong, break down the door, and manage to save her just in time. They call Peter, who bribes the attending doctor to keep her out of the psychiatric ward and promises to take care of her. Constantine also breaks his promise and gives his wife money for new winter boots. Nina is terrified of him and doesn't dare say no, but the next morning, she secretly spends the money on books instead. She asks their daughter to keep it a secret and avoids the ever-annoying Roman. That evening, the daughter breaks her promise and tells Constantine everything. Furious, he throws Nina's old boots in the trash. Natasha finally tells Alexander she's pregnant but doesn't know who the father is. The couple is torn. Alexander wants her to terminate the pregnancy and move on from the traumatic incident with the maniac, while Natasha leans toward keeping the baby, regardless of its origin. That night, Peter doesn't come home. Instead, he goes to the port where he spends time with sex workers and returns late. Meanwhile, their son, left alone at home, panics and almost falls out the window. Peter saves him at the last minute and realizes his addiction to easy women is a sickness he needs to treat. He sees a psychologist, but the sessions don't help. In desperation, he turns to the prisoner known as the doctor, who suggests using special medication to suppress the urge altogether. A few days later, Alexander and Constantine set out to find someone willing to carry out the doctor's execution. On the way, Alexander reveals his wife is pregnant. Constantine congratulates him and urges him not to make any rash decisions, saying it doesn't matter who the biological father is, what matters is who raises the child. He adds that statistically, 1 in 3 men raise children that aren't biologically theirs without ever knowing it. Pretending to be investigators, Alexander and Constantine ask around for someone willing to kill the doctor, but many people are actually thankful to him for relieving their loved one's suffering. This deeply disappoints the wardens. Eventually, Constantine finds the father of a deceased child and tells him that his son wasn't actually terminal. The boy could have been saved if not for the doctor. Devastated, the man gives all his money to his older son, asks him to leave, and then takes his own life. Later that evening, as Alexander and Constantine are about to leave their hotel room after a fruitless day, someone knocks on the door. They expect one of their contacts, but instead, it's the older son of the man who just died, the one who lost his little brother. Oleg informs Alexander and Constantine that the old man is dead, but he wants revenge for him and his deceased son. Oleg is willing to pay them $30,000 for the right to kill the doctor, but Constantine refuses. He claims that the conversation at the dead man's house was a joke, but Oleg doesn't believe him. He starts blackmailing the guards, threatening to tell the police everything. Realizing that the threats are serious, Constantine attacks him and brutally beats him up. The prosecutor, the doctor, and the third guard understand that their friends have been silent for too long and decide to call them. Alexander can't explain what's going on and throws the phone away to stop Constantine, who is determined to kill yet another witness. Back at home, Peter thanks his wife's friend for spending time with his child. Unable to control his desires, he makes advances toward the woman and is harshly rejected. Realizing he needs to address his psychological issues and sexual urges, Peter begins taking the prescribed medication. Meanwhile, Roman visits Nina and asks to talk privately. The guard has fallen for his colleague's wife and suggests they run away to the USA. Nina takes this as either a joke or mockery and bluntly rejects Roman, pushing him away. Natasha tells her mother about the pregnancy and asks for advice. Her mother suggests an abortion, emphasizing that Natasha can't afford to lose Alexander. Realizing her mother is right, Natasha goes to the hospital and ends the pregnancy without telling her husband. The next morning, Alexander and Constantine return home, bringing Oleg with them as a prisoner. A moral debate begins between the friends. Constantine believes that outsourcing a murder is a noble mission and that they can't just allow anyone to be killed, otherwise, they'll become just like the criminals they guard. Alexander disagrees, feeling that Oleg has a moral right to kill and that he's paying generously for it. Constantine doesn't consider money to be the main argument and suggests killing Oleg. Hearing this, the hostage tries to escape but injures his leg, quickly becoming an easy target for the guards. Later, Peter drops his son off at kindergarten and suddenly feels unwell. He becomes disoriented and unable to perform basic tasks. Struggling to make his way to the prison, he learns from the doctor that this is a side effect of the medication and that he needs to find the right dosage. His wife continues her treatment with psychological support and learns that she has an incurable disease, which means she must learn to value the remaining time she has. Meanwhile, the prosecutor buys an expensive new car, which delights his wife, who dreams of a luxurious lifestyle. This leads to problems as people start questioning where Andrew got so much money, and his wife begins abusing alcohol, leading to a quarrel and a slap to the face. Investigator Dushkov begins his search and realizes that Kotov arrived in the city just before the execution of the man who killed his daughter. The prison warden ignores the investigator and cannot offer any help. Andrew recognizes a police officer as an old friend. The prosecutor brings a new death warrant for the doctor, which can be carried out soon. Continuing his search for clues, Dushkov finds a sketch in the pocket of the deceased Kotov. Following the lead, he finds a burned car and a body with a gunshot wound. The investigation reveals that this was Vlad, a rich kid from a nightclub, who was murdered and then his car was set on fire to hide the evidence. Vlad and Kotov were killed with the same weapon, and all the clues point to Natasha, who was seen with Vlad, and the deceased man was at her wedding. When Dushkov meets with Natasha for questioning, she begins to feel unwell due to complications from her abortion. Back in the city, Alexander and Constantine bring Oleg to Peter so he can help him with his injured leg. That evening, the 5 friends gather to decide Oleg's fate. Constantine suggests executing both the blackmailer and the doctor, but the others don't support his idea. For them, money is more important than principles and morals, so the majority decides to take the money and allow Oleg to kill the doctor. Peter is forced to hide the prisoner Oleg at his place and gives him injections to keep him quiet, so he doesn't attract the neighbors' attention. The 4 companions continue plotting Doctor's execution and suggest cutting Constantine out of the plan, believing that because he sticks to his principles, he doesn't care about money. Prosecutor and Alexander don't realize that Constantine is eavesdropping on their conversation and understands that they can't be trusted. As for them, money matters more than human values. When Alexander learns that Natasha is in the hospital, He rushes to her side and finds out that she underwent surgery where her reproductive organs were removed. Natasha's mother slaps Alexander for being against having a child, after which he leaves to drink and forget everything. Yulia returns home and notices the prisoner. Realizing that she and her son can't continue living like this, she packs up and goes to her best friend's house. Her former colleague is willing to take Yulia and her son in, but only temporarily. When the boy decides to play with Christmas ornaments, he accidentally injures himself and Yulia. Fearing she might infect him, Yulia pulls away from her son and confesses to her friend about her illness. Not wanting to catch the same disease, the former colleague kicks Yulia and her son out. Peter tries to consult Dr. about his wife's treatment, but Konstantin prevents this. He no longer trusts anyone and believes a conspiracy is being formed against him, with the sole goal of getting money and executing the prisoner. After returning to prison, Alexander tells his friend about his personal troubles. Instead of support, Konstantin locks his friend in solitary confinement and writes a report to the prison warden. As a result, the lieutenant colonel punishes his subordinate and suspends Alexander from duty for a week. Meanwhile, Nina notices that her daughter forgot her change of shoes and left for dance class. Nina follows her, leading to a confrontation. Needing support, Nina goes to Roman and tells him about the horrors happening in her family. The love-struck guard comforts her, and they end up making love. Before Nina leaves to go home, Roman gives her his mother's boots. When Nina returns home, Konstantin realizes she's lying and that she didn't buy the boots. Deciding to punish his wife, he shaves her head. Detective Dushkov visits Natasha's mother in the hospital and learns that the deceased Vlad was a psychopath who took advantage of her vulnerability. Dushkov suspects that Alexander is behind the double murder, but he doesn't know how to prove it. Later that evening, the prosecutor and his wife host a housewarming party, inviting all their friends. The first to arrive is a drunken Alexander, who immediately criticizes Katya and Andrei for not hiding their successful financial status. Soon, Konstantin and Nina, shaved head and all, show up, shocking everyone with her appearance. When Roman arrives, Konstantin realizes there was something between him and his wife. He openly mocks his wife's new hairstyle, sparking a conflict between the guards, and Roman leaves. Dushkov finds out that Andrei moved to a new apartment and decides to visit his old friend. During the party, he notices that the prosecutor doesn't just live off his salary and that his wife believes they are wealthy, even though there's no legal reason to think so. Katya is abusing alcohol and frequently puts her husband in awkward situations with her chatter, eventually leading Alexander to slap her in the face. Konstantin, unable to tolerate a man hitting a woman, punches his friend. Later, Dushkov offers to take the drunk Alexander home, but uses the opportunity to conduct a brief search. Finding a fur coat worth thousands of dollars, he realizes that the guards and prosecutors have somehow gotten money and have probably done something illegal. As soon as Dushkov steps outside, he's met by Konstantin, who informs him that the prison warden is selling the executions of prisoners sentenced to death. He talks about outsourcing the killings but insists that it's all the warden's doing and that the next execution will happen in a few hours. After sending Konstantin back to his cell, Dushkov goes to the warden's office, and they head to the prison. Meanwhile, Peter and his wife manage to resuscitate Oleg, bringing him back to the prison so he can execute Dr. Everything is set for the execution, but the warden and detective arrive at the worst possible time. In an attempt to cover up the crime, Roman, Peter, and Andrei kill Oleg and hide his body in a nearby room. Dr. exposes the businessmen, which puts everyone in danger. Not wanting to risk his reputation, the warden, who had no part in the events, threatens Dushkov with a weapon and demands he take the detective to his cell. Trapped in a single room, Andrei, Roman, and Peter discuss the situation. Tensions rise as the friends lose trust in one another, each accusing the other of causing their predicament. Peter and Roman are convinced that the investigator exposed them because of Andrei's display of his financial success. Meanwhile, Andrei defends himself, believing that Konstantin betrayed them, though the others don't share his view. Andrei accuses Roman, pointing out that everyone noticed his affair with Nina. Soon after, the prison warden arrives to find out what's going on. Andrei, Roman, and Peter explain the outsourcing and the sale of execution rights to those sentenced to death. Upon hearing about the money, the lieutenant colonel takes the payment for the doctor's murder and Andrei's car. The next morning, the warden visits Dushkov, attempting to strike a deal, but the investigator promises to do whatever it takes to get the lieutenant colonel behind bars. He holds on to a key witness and is confident that Konstantin will continue cooperating and testify against the gang responsible for arranging the paid executions. At the same time, the police release Konstantin, as they have no grounds to keep him in custody. Soon after, Konstantin heads to prison, where he meets with the warden. The lieutenant colonel threatens full exposure and promises to send 5 of their colleagues to prison, but Konstantin blackmails him. He's sure that the lieutenant colonel won't be able to protect his reputation and will end up in prison like their accomplice. Realizing Konstantin is right, the warden agrees not to report this to the higher-ups and forces the lieutenant colonel to take a forced vacation. Returning to the investigator's cell, the lieutenant colonel informs him that Konstantin has been released and he has no leverage left. Meanwhile, the warden is ready to cooperate with the investigation as a witness to put the 5 colleagues behind bars. He allows the arrest of Alexander, Roman, Andrei, and Peter, but as Dushkov puts the handcuffs on them, the lieutenant colonel kills the investigator. The warden orders that the bodies of the investigator and Oleg be disposed of, and once again, the friends clash, trying to find someone to blame for their troubles. Later, the four of them head to the warden's office to discuss the outsourcing and Konstantin's plans. They were supposed to expand the business of executing prisoners, but the plan has failed. Seeing it as a profitable business venture, the lieutenant colonel suggests continuing the sale of execution rights and offers to lead the gang. The lieutenant colonel travels to a neighboring prison, where he strikes a deal with the warden, claiming he'll take 9 prisoners sentenced to death. He doesn't mention that it's a business for selling murders but promises a lucrative partnership. Alexander decides to visit his wife in the hospital, hoping to support her during this difficult time. Natasha apologizes for everything and confesses her love to him. She thanks him for killing Vlad and calls him a hero. This shocks Alexander, as he's disturbed by the fact that Natasha is glad about Vlad's death and views it as a heroic act. It's even harder for him because it wasn't him who killed Vlad, but Konstantin. Soon after, Konstantin visits Alexander and realizes that their friendship has ended due to their differing views on the events. Knowing that his former friends are no longer on his team, Konstantin starts playing his own game. He meets Roman's mother and tells her that her son got involved with an easy woman. Later, he visits Andrei's wife and reveals a dark secret about where the prosecutor's wealth came from. After that, Konstantin meets Natasha at the hospital and tells her that he knows all about her health problems and the situation with the late maniac Vlad. The next morning, the lieutenant colonel arrives at the prosecutor's office to discuss outsourcing murders. Andrei explains that their second execution failed due to differing views on how it should be carried out. 4 of the men are ready to sell the murders to anyone, while only Konstantin insists on doing things with integrity. The prison warden realizes that the 4 are motivated solely by money, and that suits him just fine. Katya decides to continue abusing alcohol. Konstantin tells her that Andrei treats her like an object, not a woman. Taking his words to heart, she leaves her gold earrings with the shopkeeper. When Natasha returns home, she finds the fur coat Alexander bought her and feels grateful for his generosity. At the same time, Katya arrives and starts talking about the murders happening in the prisons. Realizing that their husbands are profiting from killing people, the women decide to find the money and search their homes. Later, they go to Peter's wife's house and search there too, hoping to find the elusive dollars. Back home, Peter explains to his wife that you can't make much money through honest work. She has to choose between her conscience or money and health, as well as the chance to see their son grow. Katya also tries to criticize her husband about money, but he reminds her that it's only him who cares about her well-being. Andrei doesn't want his wife drinking, not because he's a tyrant, but because he's the only one who truly loves her. Realizing she's been acting recklessly, Katya tries to return the earrings, but the shopkeeper denies everything and throws her out. Konstantin and Nina's daughter understands that her mother is a prisoner of her tyrannical father and decides to help her. Instead of controlling her, she proposes meeting with Roman and promises to deliver her mother's message so he can protect her from Konstantin. When they meet, the daughter asks him to save Nina and arranges for Nina to wait for him at the airport. The next morning, Nina runs away from home, but Roman doesn't show up because Nina has stolen and hidden the money. He's furious but powerless to help her, so she returns home. Konstantin notices his wife has once again broken his rules and realizes she needs to be punished severely for it. Meanwhile, Natasha's mother tries to find the investigator to discuss the upcoming arrest of Alexander, but he has disappeared without a trace. She later tells another investigator, but he refuses to take on the case and plans to close it. Alexander manages to avoid punishment, but Natasha's mother can't rest and goes to prison. She passes a note with information to the prison warden and then meets him in person. The lieutenant colonel denies any involvement in the killings and seduces her to become his lover. Later, Natasha comes home and tells her mother about the murders happening in the prison. The lieutenant colonel overhears their conversation and doesn't deny anything, knowing that Natasha's mother will keep quiet if she doesn't want them to be killed. The lieutenant colonel meets each of the 4 men separately for a private talk and realizes that all of them want to continue making a lot of money. The next morning, 9 new prisoners, sentenced to death, arrive at the prison. The lieutenant colonel promises to create a business where he, Andrei, Peter, Roman, and Alexander will all make good money. But there's a problem: they need to deal with Konstantin. He knows too much, and the men must kill him, after which they can continue selling the rights to execute those condemned to death. A few days later, Peter summons the criminal known as Dr. He offers him a deal. The maniac will be sent to a psychiatric hospital and given a few more weeks of life, but in return, he must reveal the composition of the poison used in the injections given to sick patients. Doctor fears being deceived but agrees to the deal, providing the recipe for a drug that causes heart failure. After much contemplation, Konstantin comes to the painful realization that his wife no longer loves him and doesn't want to be with him. He gives Nina her freedom, but she doesn't believe him and begs for forgiveness. Unwilling to hold on to the marriage, Konstantin throws Nina out onto the street with her belongings, keeping only their daughter. Continuing her communication with her mother, Natasha realizes that the closest person to her never truly loved her. Her mother had always wanted to get rid of her and had tried to marry her off in order to forget about her. Understanding that the only person who truly loves her is Alexander, Natasha goes to a nightclub, where she meets Vlad's widow. She tells her that the deceased was a maniac who attacked her, which leads to a slap in the face with a glass. Later that evening, the prison warden invites Natasha's mother to dinner and notices some Japanese guests. Realizing they are incredibly wealthy, he suggests the translator inform them about the services offered at the local prison. The lieutenant colonel is ready to take the tourists on a tour of the prison and show them how executions are carried out. Peter creates the poisonous injection, and he, Andrei, Roman, and Alexander discuss who will kill Constantine. Alexander was closest to him, so he would be able to approach the former friend and administer the injection. However, Alexander hesitates, unwilling to betray his friendship and kill a man who once took responsibility for difficult decisions. Despite his fear, Alexander is pressured into agreeing with the majority. They soon locate Constantine at a restaurant, but at the last moment, Alexander is overcome with fear. He can't bring himself to betray their bond. Andrei and Roman force him to act, pushing him to finish what was started. But Alexander, ultimately, is a coward. Nina seeks help from Roman but accidentally spots the money his mother dropped. Seeing thousands of dollars, she attacks the woman, beating her to steal the money. She heads to a nearby store, buys the most expensive boots, and then goes to the airport. Roman, learning of the events, tries to stop Nina and escape with her, but she betrays him as well. She never loved either Roman or Alexander and simply runs away, flying to another country with the stolen money. Meanwhile, Peter spends nearly all his savings to pay for his wife's treatment in the capital. The next morning, Natasha meets Constantine at a bus stop. Using the pretense of an embrace, she administers a fatal injection and watches as he dies. After abandoning his body, she and her 4 associates rejoice at the elimination of the only threat to their business. Life improves, the prosecutor gets a new position, Peter continues his wife's treatment, and Roman starts saving again. The business is thriving, and the prison warden arranges for tourists to not only watch an execution but also personally kill a convict. That evening, they choose one of the condemned men and prepare him for execution. The Japanese guests demand to see suffering and request that the convict be beaten before they personally kill him and take his organs as souvenirs. Other prisoners hear the screams, pleas for help, and cries, realizing their own terrible fate awaits them. It seems like the criminal gang behind the paid executions is prospering, but everything collapses in an instant. The president of the country institutes a moratorium on the death penalty, replacing it with life imprisonment. The business is in danger, as now the warden and his 4 subordinates can no longer kill people and sell the right to do so. Trying to figure out their next steps, the group discusses their options when suddenly one of the condemned prisoners, previously sentenced to death, bursts into the office. He seeks revenge for the tortured inmates and shoots the lieutenant colonel, Alexander, Roman, Peter, and Andrei before ending his own life. Just before dying, Peter looks up and sees a living Constantine, realizing that Doctor had tricked him. It turns out the convicted maniac had figured out who the poison was meant for and deliberately provided the wrong recipe to save Constantine, the only person who had ever treated him with kindness. Can revenge ever be justified as justice when it's carried out by the law, but beyond its official reach? When the system allows private individuals to carry out sentences, does the line between justice and vigilantism blur? Share your thoughts in the comments down below, give us a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.